Not kill, not kill, not kill, not kill.
It's used in a derogatory sense by the elite.
The only piece of paper I've got here is a ballot paper for the local council.
Hello and welcome back to the Traction Control Podcast, your weekly dose of sim racing news, racing game news, and very random opinions. I'm Tom, all as ever joined by John, but Tom Bunten is away, so we're joined by Ross McGregor. He's graced us with his presence again. And before we get into some really interesting news and feedback this week, we're just going to quickly talk about what we've been up to.
Well, I have been out on circuit once again. I was at Anglesey for the British Sprint Championship round, which was great fun. You remember we talked about this in the podcast a few weeks ago. It was snowing and the event I was at was actually snowed off. This weekend, beautiful blue skies, looking over the sea at Anglesey. It was absolutely stunning. And yeah, it went pretty well. Picked up picked up 8th and then a DNF on the first day thanks to a fuel pump issue, but then a couple of 6th on the second day and pretty much maximised the results with the car. So it was great fun, beautiful weather. And I should also mention the winner of the event, Ethan Faulkner, is a sim racer for Visceral Esports, and he broke the outright track record on the Saturday event, which is great. And it's actually his old car that I'm now driving this year. So kind of a cool sim racing full circle moment.
Well, speaking of beautiful blue skies, I was at Knockhill at the weekend, and it was like the opening round of kind of Knockhill's motorsport racing calendar. So I just watched some Legends racing, where there's like a 34 car grid, which is like the biggest grid in Knockhill's history, I think, for the Legends Championship. And yeah, just chilled out and had a nice weekend. And also got lightly trolled by Tom Bunten, interestingly, because he kind of has a go at me for mentioning Knockhill at every single opportunity, which is obviously true. And he replied to one of my Instagram stories saying, "Which track is this?" ? So a little shout out for Tom there, who I'm replacing.
You're here replacing him and talking about Knockhill in your first sentences. Excellent.
Yes, Knockhill, 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 Knockhill.
But it was Knockhill reverse this time, so it's slightly different.
Yeah, totally different track, Tom. Yes, thanks for pointing that out. So
that's all right. Well, I wasn't at a racetrack this weekend. I just spent it at home watching the British Touring Car Championship and some of the support races. Shout out to Josh Rogers, actually, in the Porsche Cup, the sim racing driver, getting some podiums. But a few days prior to that, or the week prior to that, I did visit Brands Hatch for the BTCC pre-season test. I think there was about 9 to 10,000 people just there on a freebie in a sunny day, had an ice cream, and it was good for photography because in a race it's quite hard to take pictures and you want to follow the race. But here they were just pounding around all day. Nick Hamilton crashed into the barrier twice in front of us, but the second one it was at least a puncher. So always good to get out and about and see some racing. Shame there's no BTCC game if I can try and somehow segue back into gaming. And on that note, let's talk Assetto Corsa EVO again, this time with the 0.6 early access update, significant changes, a different shift in tone, more race car bias, the first time Sebring has been in the AC franchise officially with laser scanned, and also some significant changes to the sort of underlying structure of the game.
Yeah, we're talking post 0.6 this week, so we've actually had a chance to try it all out. And I know that I tried it on a Traxion live stream, so some of you listening to this podcast would have been watching that stream. And you'll know then that I actually thought it was probably the best Assetto Corsa update so far in terms of overall game progression. We talked in a previous podcast, I can't remember if it was last week, I think it probably was last week, about how there are supposedly some changes in important areas, things like the UI, things like the AI, and as well as the new content, of course. And I actually think that this update moved a lot of those things in the right direction. I had a good, well, maybe not good, but I had a decent, solid experience with AI racing. Still room for improvement, but a lot better as a baseline. I had better performance. I had some great online racing in the new cars and the new track. And obviously, there's a lot we can dive into here, but I just want to say straight off the bat, this is possibly the most impressive Assetto Corsa update to date.
Yep, I'd probably agree with that. But I'd also like to add that I feel like this is how AC EVO should have been, like in early access from the very beginning. Because things like performance, for me, that was like a nice surprise because there was never, I don't think anything was actually mentioned in the changelog about improved performance. But for me, it was such a much smoother experience than before. and I did like a lot of running on the Nordschleife, which is obviously going to be the most intensive sort of track for your PC. And it was pretty good. So I was pleasantly surprised. And also Sebring was like, I would maybe even say it was like the best version of Sebring I've ever seen in sim racing, just in terms of like how it looked and like the overall atmosphere of the track.
No, I was exactly the same. Just on the performance thing, though, I think there was a small mention of there being CPU optimization, so it wasn't exactly clear what that was going to change. But I remember there being a small line in there about potential optimization. That for me was quite exciting because I feel like my sim racing recently has been quite CPU intense and CPU limited, and I genuinely noticed a big difference. And sometimes with these things, there's an improvement. It's very hard to spot. But I remember doing back-to-back tests in Watkins Glen. When I first streamed Watkins Glen, when that update first came out, I think it was 0.5, I had a frame rate drop every single time at the same part of the lap, no matter whether I had cars on track with me or not. This time, absolutely perfect. I didn't have a single performance issue throughout the whole stream, other than the FPS being slightly below 60 at points, which is the way it is. So 100% agree that was a big change. And also, Sebring atmosphere, definitely the biggest atmosphere I've experienced at Sebring on a sim. I think it's very hard these days to differentiate between different sims and their implementation of a new circuit, because so many times I jump in Le Mans Ultimate or Assetto Corsa Competizione back in the day or iRacing and you go, yeah, it's a new circuit. It looks really realistic. It feels good. It's a laser scan. It's going to be accurate. It's usually quite difficult to talk about things other than the visuals. But Kuno Simulazione do such a good job of bringing atmosphere to circuits. And this was like full Sebring 12-hour party atmosphere. There's barbecues going off. There's RVs everywhere. There's flags flying. And the
So
track
many
just
flags.
felt way busier. So many flags. Yeah, too many flags, maybe. But the track definitely just felt busier than ever before on a sim, which is really cool. And of course, having some GT3 cars to race around it is something we've talked about a lot on this podcast, and splits opinions as to whether we should be focusing more on GT3s or other things, of course. I do think the GT3s have a little bit more work to be as good as some of the competition, but I think it's a solid enough starting point. Maybe BOP, some setup tweaks, and the odd little physics tweak could have them in a pretty good position. So, I mean, what did you think of the Ferrari and the Ford Mustang?
Well, in terms of driving, I enjoyed the Ferrari more than the Mustang. I caught some of your stream and you found it was like quite unstable under braking a lot of time.
Yes.
And I kind of found that as well, but I also found the Ferrari was much quicker, so it needs a bit of balancing. But they also introduced the Porsche 911 GT3R Rennsport, and weirdly, it's not a GT3 car per se, it's a track day car. But they also added like a GT3 variant, so it would balance against the GT3 cars already in the game. So I thought it was kind of odd, like, why not just add the GT3 car? But, that's fine. And another thing to note about the GT3 cars is that they're the previous gen, so they're not the EVO versions of the car. So that was kind of strange, but I guess maybe they've not had time to do that. I don't know.
Yeah, I get what you mean. It still feels like it's just like you said at the start. It almost feels like this should be the starting point, because it feels like some of the foundations, some of the biggest issues I have now improved, but there's still, every single area still has work to go to be, to be considered a great success, let's say. But we're definitely at a point now where you can fire up that game and actually have a pretty good afternoon on the sim, and there's just less points of complaint for me, or at least those complaints are less extreme than they were. So it's been a good week for Kuno Simulazione. We should also give a shout out to the Nürburgring Nordschleife, which has been updated once again. You might be thinking, why have they bothered with that? It was already a pretty recent version, but it is cool to see the first proper, April 2026 spec Nürburgring Nordschleife in a sim, and you have to give them credit for being right on top of that, because of course is a track that sim racers care a lot about.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for your feedback there. I wasn't able to play it, so that's Ross and John's expertise. There is a live stream which you can watch back on the Traxion YouTube channel by John. Ross has written an opinion piece on the website. There's another one to come about the Nordschleife in particular, and there's also a video coming to the main YouTube channel tomorrow by John about sort of the overall state of EVO, the current state of play, let's say. But for now, let's run through some community thoughts, feedback. We put out a community post on the Traxion YouTube channel asking for people's opinions. We'll start with Axe Loving Guy. It's a big improvement, but I'm still only testing the game for 2 to 3 hours after each update, as it lacks any real progression either in single player or online. And another similar one, Claw9949, adding cars and a track doesn't add purpose.
I agree with both of those to a degree. I just want to say in the first one, that's how I've been with Evo as well, generally speaking. And I do still think we're sort of in that phase where you try it for a few hours and then there's not enough there compared to the competition to bring you back more regularly. But I would say now the player numbers are rising on a consistent basis. There's regular online racing happening. There's, of course, the new championship mode sort of being introduced to online racing subtly this week. So there's a few changes in that department. And I do think we are starting to see a baseline of players who don't just play it for 2 to 3 hours and actually play it a bit more regularly. So I think that's only going to increase. But I still personally am probably in that same position.
Yeah. I mean, I'm exactly the same as you. I play it for a few hours for each update and just like gather my thoughts, but nothing's fundamentally changed. However, for version 0.6, Kunos added self-hosted servers, which could be massive for the game. Like we've already seen that Low Fuel Motorsport, like a sim racing platform, which has like a skill-based kind of online matchmaking kind of stuff going on. And it has like nearly 300,000 sort of users. Like that's introduced AC EVO into its kind of lineup of sims. So something like that could be huge for the game in terms of like player numbers and just like hold an interest for players as well.
Yeah, well, on that note, and I can't pronounce that username, apologies, but EDZGT5243, catchy. The fact that you can run your own servers changes the game because the multiplayer was so awkward and dysfunctional without it. And also, John, you did mention, though, that at the time of recording, they have just added some sort of championship mode to the native system. But then this also opens it up to be more free for those who want to customize things or other third-party services. So it is a positive step forward. And also, we should mention that in terms of sense of purpose and progression, well, we had an interview recently with Marco Massaruto, we referenced it a few times, where, yes, they went back on, or they reneged on the original idea for the career plan and progression, but there's still going to be something, we believe, when it hits version 1.0 or afterwards, for the single-player fans. And then also there's the big free roam thing, which will be single player and multiplayer. And who knows when it's going to arrive, but it'll be at some point this year, we hope. Trackday Media says, holy, is that an actual race car and not another road car? This is good news. So they're clearly a fan of the GT3 stuff. And then Markley777 says, was comparing the Mustang at Sebring with ACC and Evo yesterday. Evo wins on graphical and sound. The sounds in Evo are just sweet.
Agreed. I think, and there were more sound improvements in this update, but there have also been audio improvements across the board, generally speaking, in every update, or it feels like it anyway. And you do have to give credit to the sound design team, because I do think the sounds in Assetto Corsa EVO are so good that they just add a little element of atmosphere to the game. And I think the road cars, for example, are very exciting to listen to as well. I'm not saying every car sounds great, but generally speaking, I'm a big fan of the audio.
Yeah, generally I am as well, but I think the Mustang onboard sound was a bit digitized, I thought. I didn't think it was that great. And interestingly, the Mustang and ACC was basically the same audio as the Jaguar G3, I think, in the game. So, yeah, well, I guess anything's better than just like a copy-paste sort of job, so yeah. But I think the Ferrari sounded awesome. What do you think?
Yeah, it did, and the reverb effects and stuff when you go through past the pit walls and things like that, it's impressive. And I think especially when you're driving like the Dallara Stradale and things like that, open top cars, the exhaust pops and everything. There's a lot of attention to detail there. But yeah, not every car hits the mark for sure. But I do think, and visually as well, lots of people talk about the visuals in Assetto Corsa EVO. I think I appreciate them more when the performance is good. Like when the performance hasn't been so good, I find it hard to appreciate visuals because I'm trying to compromise to try and find something, and it bothers me. Once the performance gets settles down, I should say, suddenly you can start going, okay, now let's play around with the graphics, and actually, yeah, it can be a very pretty game as well.
Totally. So we'll keep following Evo. We say Evo, you might say Evo. We're supposed to say in Evo. And also keep coming with your feedback and comments. Much appreciated. Follow the website and YouTube for more, as I say, this week. So now we'll move on to Full Send Dead End. And it's kind of an interesting addition this week. This is where we posit an opinion and we say full send is agree or dead end disagree. And each of us discuss why we agree or disagree. But this week we're sort of rolling it in with the news because there's quite a few interesting news topics floating around this week. It's not just Assetto Corsa's big update. So the first one is Rennsport won't recover from its latest publisher setback. And so just to be clear, story again on the Traxion website, news through this week that, well, it all stems from a couple of months ago when Nakon, who is the publisher on console for Rennsport, went insolvent or filed for insolvency. There was some disagreement there. Maybe the full details will never be public. Anyway, Rennsport is now having to or choosing to self-publish henceforth. And it's turned out to be a huge change, and it's delaying things. So the big March update was delayed to April, and now it's been delayed till May, and there's no guarantee it's going to necessarily be then. And they've put a statement out saying there's no set dates for things, so we'll have to see what's going on. So full send, dead end, Ross. Rennsport won't recover from the latest publisher setback.
I have to say full send, I think. I agree with that.
John?
I'm going to go with dead end then.
I'll do the same. Ross, you're on your own there.
Sorry, Ross.
That's okay.
He can stand on the top of Not Kill on his own.
Yeah, I will die on that hill. So yeah, Rennsport, they've not really done a lot this year. DLC's obviously been delayed, and I just feel like the insolvency kind of news coming out, that could be like the final nail in the coffin. Like I want it to succeed. Like we all want Sims to be brilliant and all have like great content and stuff like that, but it just feels like the inertia's gone and things are kind of slowing down rather than speeding up. So I don't know, like I hope for the best, but like based on what's happened in the past, I can't see them recovering from that.
Now, I may have gone with dead end as a heart over head thing here, but I feel like there's been a lot of setbacks in the Rennsport story, and they're still here. They still have a game on console, on PC. They're still hosting events. So for me, it's more of a thing of, do I think this one particular setback is the one that means they won't recover? No, I think that they will soldier on and work through it. And I'm not saying that there's a guarantee that it will, but I just think there needs to be more time to see what the effects truly are. Yes, we haven't heard much or seen much in recent times, not nothing in terms of, the events we saw recently in the event you were at, Tom. But I think that when marketing goes a bit quiet, I do think that means there's a lot of work going on in the background on whatever's next. And maybe it's just a case of hunkering down, focusing on the next release and the improvements. We know that there's going to be a revised AI system from scratch, being rebuilt from scratch, all of these things. We know that there's content coming. So there's a lot to be working on. And I just think it's too early to say that it won't recover from the latest setback. However, would it surprise me if it doesn't? Not necessarily.
Yeah, we've got to be careful because we have a history, and there's a nice little clip of it on our Instagram and TikTok and social media where we were like, yeah, Nakon, the sleeping giant of racing games. And then 2 weeks later, insolvent. So this has huge ramifications, and I actually think I'd side more with Ross than John in this instance. However, I'm still going to say dead end. I still disagree with the statement that they won't recover. I think they will, but this is the moment. This is a sink or swim moment, the pivotal time, because as Ross pointed out there hasn't been. We're in April. There hasn't been a single update in 2026 for this game, and so that's going to impact sales numbers and player numbers, and that means there's going to be no revenue coming in. So I'm hoping that they've got enough to sort of sit on, enough funds to sit on and back in, but that will be dwindling, and they need the sales now. So I have a feeling that if it's not out in May, then it's time is running out, which is a title of an article I wrote on the website last week. They've got the right ideas. The implementation has been hit and miss. They've got something there, especially for console players, that could be compelling. It's an absolute disaster, though. This is the biggest story in sim racing right now, even though the game itself hasn't got the player numbers, and when we write about it, talk about it, we're not going to get the viewer numbers. But this is crazy.
So, Tom, have you just full sent on a dead end into a dead end?
No. I'm saying this is really difficult. Yeah, sorry, that was a
half-hearted lunge if ever I've heard one.
No, I think it is dead end. I think Rennsport will recover, provided they do it within this time frame. If anything later than that, I feel like it's game over. And on that confused mess, we'll move on to the next one. Gran Turismo 7 is right to add slow cars like the Renault Twingo, and this is because this week sees the launch of another Gran Turismo 7 update hugely popular title. It's going to be the Yangwang U9, which is in certain specifications is the world's quickest car. Fastest car. Fastest is speed, quickest is time. Let's get our word pedantry back out again. And then also the 1993 Renault Twingo, which is a very slow French hatchback that a lot of people, especially
isn't the world's fastest car or quickest car.
It's the antithesis of the Yangwang. And then also, there's going to be some sort of Porsche 911. So, Ross, Gran Turismo 7 is right to add slow cars like Renault Twingos. Full send, dead end.
Full send.
John?
Very full send.
Oh, we're so boring in agreement, but I agree with that full send. I do think Gran Turismo 7 is right to add slow cars. Ross?
Yeah, for me, Gran Turismo is like buy a slow car, add some crazy turbo to it or an engine swap or something and make it fast. That's like the whole thing with Gran Turismo. Like, when I played the original Gran Turismo back in 1997 or 98 or whatever it was on like a chipped PlayStation, it was a Japanese version as well, so that was tricky. The first car I drove was the Mazda Demio, and like for many Gran Turismo players, that's Gran Turismo. You start out with the Mazda Demio and then you work your way up. So yeah, like it makes complete sense to me.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I mean, basically copy paste. I think that the soul and heart of Gran Turismo lies with those slow cars as well as the fast stuff. So yeah, this is not they're right to add cars and never add any fast cars. They should add slow cars and they can add fast cars and race cars because Gran Turismo covers the whole automotive spectrum. The only thing I would say though is it would be nice to have more of the slower cars when the game launches. Like that feels like these are the sort of cars you want at the start of the game. When you're talking about late updates years into the process when who knows, maybe there's another Gran Turismo at some point coming along. That at this point it's kind of like a bit of fun, right? You buy a Twingo, you shove a big engine in it, you race it for a day, it'll be a laugh, and then there'll be some Twingo jokes, and that'll be about it. But it is absolutely Gran Turismo 7 is totally right to add cars like the Renault Twingo.
Yes, that's exactly the same point I was going to say. Is that it's great to have starter cars, but 3 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a bit late.
Now,
but yeah.
These days, like going back to what you said, Ross, that Mazda Demio was the jam, wasn't it? We had to accelerate and then brake. And
yeah.
I like that you did the action as well.
Don't know why I did that.
Leaf
That's
springs.
how I played it. But now, I suppose the tuning and the modifying in Gran Turismo 7 is far more advanced than Gran Turismo 1. So there'll be, I hope, wide body kits, spoilers. The livery designs and shares will be insane for this. So there's quite a bit of fun there. Hopefully you can do like a little race with friends in lobbies with tuned Twingos, and then next month there's like some sort of engine swap update. That seems to be the usual pattern. So there's a lot more to do with these tuner cars, starter cars, quote unquote, by tuning these days than ever. But you're right, I still would like the progression. It's almost as if sometimes they're building up the cars for the next game's progression, right? Let's hope these carry across these models and don't have to restart the whole thing for Gran Turismo 8. If it's happening,
I say now, if I get some sort of agency, I promise to you now, I will start Gran Turismo 8 with this Renault Twingo. I will do that.
Loop back to the podcast reference. All right, and final full set dead end, and the third bit of news we're going to cover this week. So Formula Legends, which is sort of a retro, cutesy Formula single-seater racing game, accessible. Gamepad, it's on PC, Switch, PlayStation, Xbox. It's probably on Sega Mega Drive. It takes like the history of Formula One, even though not officially licensed, boils it all down, and we thought it was very average at launch. But it's been having a lot of updates and a lot of DLC. It even has a car that's similar to the current 2026 Formula One rule set already. And it's just announced it's got its first official license, which is Formula E. And it will have 6 scaled-down real-world Formula E tracks, 3 generations of Formula E cars, so not just the current one, and official driver... well, I'm not sure about driver names, but certainly team names and liveries. And this will be releasing towards the end of the month, and we'll have a hands-on, hopefully before release, on the Traxion website. So the full send dead end is Formula Legends is the only game that suits Formula E. So full send or dead end, Ross?
Tentative dead end.
John?
Confident dead end.
Okay, I think agree. And I'll start. So I think full send at Formula Legends.
Wait, hang on. Agree with us or full send agree?
I'm full send agreeing that Formula Legends is the only game that suits Formula E. I don't think people in simulation land want to necessarily drive the electric cars that much. If you want to really simulate it, you have to do a lot of energy saving through the race, manage your attack modes and your pit boosts and all this stuff. Not sure it suits that environment. There was Track Mania, which is really cool for it, but maybe that was too overtly like, what's the point? Because there's no difference with it. You're just changing the body of the vehicle, right? Whereas Formula Legends, it's cute, it's accessible, it's easy. You don't really have to be serious about the management of things, apart from maybe attack mode, which is kind of like a boost. So it suits well for me.
But Tom, nobody said anywhere that we're only talking about hardcore sims here. You said
true.
Formula Legends is the only game that suits Formula E. Do you not think Formula E is almost perfect for an iRacing arcade Circuit Superstar style game? Like where there's already those sorts of boosts which come as power-ups before the race. There's only one gear for these cars. So I think Formula E on that sort of game is awesome. I think Grid Legends even did it well. Formula Legends isn't even the only game with the word Legends in it that suits Formula E. I think the Formula E racing on Grid Legends was actually really fun, and I enjoyed it. I'm not saying the Formula E cars are the most exciting cars in the world to drive, but I think in any sort of racing game that encourages crazy amounts of disciplines, this would have been great on like a Toka Race Driver 3 or something. Yes, it's not going to be good on Le Mans Ultimate, maybe not great on iRacing and all these things and all these bespoke tracks to go with it, but it's definitely not the only game that I think suits the cars.
Well, you're right and I'm wrong. Although, what I would say is that were the electric single-seaters in Grid Legends officially licensed? Because if not...
Good point.
Invalid. Invalidated. No.
But it would suit it. It would suit it.
Yeah.
So I drove the Formula E content in R Factor 2, and I found it was absolute bobbins. So like I'm quite happy for it to be in kind of less serious titles, because I don't see many sim racers having like being enthusiastic about driving them in like a proper sim like R Factor 2 or iRacing or anything like that. I think they'd be limited in popularity. So yeah.
Let me make another argument here as well. First of all, the sounds are rubbish. I totally acknowledge that. And sim racing, sounds are really important. Like a good sounding race car, an old V12 and a McLaren F1 GTR or something like that can really bring a sim to life. But the Gen 3 Formula E cars, is it Gen 3 we're in now or is it Gen 4? Anyway, the current day Formula E cars are pretty quick. And I do think for racing and for something unique, I think there's an interesting driving challenge there for sure. So I would actually be interested in like a race room ranked race in a modern new gen Formula E car. Like, I'm not saying that for sure I would do it and love it and want to do it every day, but would I be interested in giving it a go? Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I do think that I didn't word the best full send down in here because, yes, of course, I think in a more accessible game other than Formula Legends, John mentioned iRacing Arcade there, which drives very similar to Formula Legends, not the same game. Then of course it would work in something like that as well. So I've been hoisted by my own petard. But should also note there, John mentioned evolutions of Formula E. I think there is a Gen 4 or an all new one on the way very soon, maybe later this year as well. So I'm interested to see if that evolves, and maybe that might be more suited for the more serious games. Anyway, and with this terrible pun, we should charge on into the next segment, which is the quiz. I should say last week, nice to see a lot of comments and positive sentiment about the quiz. So thank you for playing along when you're listening or watching. And thanks for letting Tom Bunten know that it's going to be a permanent feature. Well, semi-permanent. We'll do it when we can. All right. So 3 questions this week. First one. Netcar Pro is regarded as Kunos Simulation's first commercially available game or sim. When did it release? What year, please?
Oh, Tom.
Oh.
Before looking this up, I didn't know.
That is a great question.
That's a terrible question.
I don't know the answer, but it's a great question.
I think the second question Ross will get straight away.
Keep going on.
And the third question, he's kind of already mentioned it earlier in the podcast, but we'll find out what that is soon. So have you both got an answer down?
No.
Yes.
Yeah, let's go with this. Yeah.
Okay. On a similar theme, the first Automobilista is celebrating an anniversary since its release this year. So, and that's not when it was technically first called Stock Car Extreme, but what year did it release as Automobilista?
Yes.
That could be a premature celebration, Ross.
Sorry, hang on. So this is the year that it was Automobilista.
Released.
This is Automobilista release.
Yes. Technically, it was originally called Stock Car Extreme and might have been announced or available as that. But what year was it available as Automobilista? As we know now. Automobilista 1. A couple of hardcore niche PC simulators to start there. But if you don't know those games, it's okay.
I think I know the release year for Game Stock Car Extreme, just not for Automobilista. So anyway, we'll go with it.
Slightly different thing. Right. To round out the quiz, which game is older in terms of the year they first released? And I mean, irrespective of region, so the first region they were released in. Destruction Derby 2 or the first Gran Turismo?
Oh.
Which is older? Destruction Derby 2 or Gran Turismo 1? And there's a reason.
Is Ross scoring points on behalf of Tom Bunten? Or
no, this is just going to be a scrubbed, like, see who's best, Ross or John. When it comes to release dates of old games.
This is the first time we've done a quiz and I've got no confidence in any of my answers.
Right, well, let's go through the answers then. So Netcar Pro, Kunos Simulation's first release. It released in 2006, 20 years ago. John, what did you have?
Not 2006. 2009.
Ross?
I also guessed 2009.
Yeah, no, so it's 20 years old this year.
I started in 2000. I started with 2005, 2003-ish, and I was like, wait, no, it can't be. It cannot be.
Oh, look at that. Ross is holding up a physical copy of the PC CD-ROM of Netcar Pro, shortened to NK Pro, wasn't it? Or something like that.
Yeah. Modern-friendly, ultra-realistic racing game, superb rain model, interactive cockpits, different tyre models, 9 super-realistic vehicles, 6 large racetracks, track editor, can be extended through DLC.
I don't remember doing too much AI racing on it, but I do remember as like a sandbox, drive a car on a certain track. I did actually think it was really enjoyable, and that's what made me excited for Assetto Corsa. The main thing was the Trento Bundone hill climb. I just did so many runs of that hill climb on that game to try and prepare for a future of doing hill climbs, so that was cool.
Wonderful. Okay, another game that's also celebrating an anniversary, because Netcar Pro there was 20 years old. Automobilista 1, the first one, when did it release, Ross?
2016.
What did you put, John?
2016.
All right, it's 10 years old, so it's 1 point each.
Hey.
And so that ties into the final question. Which game is older, Destruction Derby 2 or the first Gran Turismo? Ross, what did you go with?
Gran Turismo.
John?
Gran Turismo.
You're both wrong. So it's a draw. I didn't have a tiebreaker. Brilliant. So, Destruction Derby 2 launched in 1996. So it is 30 years old.
Sorry, just to quickly say there, I've just realised Ross and I had exactly the same answers for every single question in that quiz.
Amazing.
I only got one right.
Unfortunate that 2 of them are wrong. Yes.
Anyway, sorry. Continue.
So it released in 1996 in all regions on PC, and then 1997 in Europe on PlayStation. Slight delay there. It came to America earlier on PlayStation as well. Gran Turismo 1 was December 1997, only in Japan, and then the rest of the world in 1998. So there's, depending on the platform and region, there could have almost been a 2-year-ish or 18-month gap between those two releases. So Destruction Derby 2, it is 30 years old this year, and that is older than Gran Turismo. Right. So it ended in a draw because I didn't think of a tiebreaker. Apologies. But let us know in the comments what you got right or if you didn't. Right. And we'll finish this week's episode with the community question. It's not really a question, but it's more of a statement, and we're going to just quickly discuss it. This is from Corey Phillips on Spotify. So those on Spotify listening, please give us a follow and subscribe, but also a star rating, a review, and you can leave comments on each individual episode. And we also upload it in video form there, if that's your bag. He says, and we'll break it down into a couple of bits here. I think that first it should be pointed out that Gran Turismo 7 is a sim. You drive a car in the game, similar, with capitalization on sim, to real life. The ideas are there, or ideals are there. It just isn't crazy hardcore. Thoughts on that? I actually kind of agree with it personally.
I think there's a massive sort of stigma about what's a simulator, what's simcade, what's arcade, and it's all kind of created nonsense, right? It's user created nonsense to a degree, because arcade is a specific genre that doesn't mean something is not a serious sim racing game. It's an arcade game. It's different. Then you've got games that are trying to be really authentic, that are simulation, but where do you draw the line between trying to be really authentic and succeeding in being a certain level of authentic? Gran Turismo 7, at the end of the day, is trying to be authentic, but it's also trying to be a game at the same time. So what do you call something like that? I still think because it's about the automotive kind of industry, and it's about cars being authentic and driving like they should roughly. And yes, the physics might not feel perfect. It still, to me, can be argued as a simulation. So having the word hardcore in there makes a lot of sense. So I actually must say, to the first part of your question, Corey, I'd have to agree.
Yep, I think it's kind of a blurred line between racing game and simulator, isn't it? It's like Gran Turismo 7 tries to simulate like driving physics, and it does. It feels quite convincing, and the word you used, John, was authentic. And yeah, like I agree with that. Like I enjoy playing Gran Turismo 7. I think the physics feel, quite realistic most of the time. And yeah, you just enjoy it for what it is.
Totally. And also, I think you both touched upon something there. We might use it sometimes, but we really have a policy at Traxion to try and not use the term simcade, because it's used in a derogatory sense by the elite, the sim elite, and which I've just invented. And also, it's a portmanteau, isn't it, of simulation and arcade. Well, Gran Turismo is not an arcade game. An arcade game is Sega Rally or Daytona, where you're literally in an arcade on a cabinet, and it's super, super easy. And there's some real skill to getting the good times in those games, but they're not trying in any way to be extraordinarily realistic. I think Outrun or something like this. And then maybe that's a super literal version of arcade, but then you could say like a Burnout or a Need for Speed, right? Gran Turismo is not an arcade. So when people say, "Oh, that simcade trash," and same for the Formula 1 game in some respects, right? They're not arcade at all. So then we need a different term. I think we said it previously, maybe sim light or something like that, or authentic is a good way of doing
casual racing game for me is like, one that's a bit more relaxed, and like Forza Horizon I would describe as casual, but it's still trying to show you the dynamics of how a car works, but it's not holding you to the standards of a real car's grip on the real road.
Yeah. So big debate there. We could go on a whole episode about that. But thanks for Corey for bringing that up. I think we were talking about Gran Turismo in a previous podcast. And then we're also talking about, in a previous episode, which this is commented on, about the cost of sim racing. And so Corey says, the problem with iRacing is the stuff you buy, you can't use offline if you are no longer paying the subscription, which is correct. To me, this is wrong. Le Mans Ultimate, you can buy the whole game and play offline, as far as I can tell, forever, and then pay the sub for the online racing parts. This seems more fair to me. Options are fair for consumers always, or customers always. I would like to pick on one small thing, Corey, that makes your argument even better, actually, which is for Le Mans Ultimate, there are some certain online features that you do need a sub for, but actually the basic daily racing, you actually don't even need a sub, so you can actually buy the game and play online without the subscription in any form. Thoughts on the big subscription-based model or payment model, again, for iRacing versus LMU, Ross?
Well, here's another interesting thing to think about. iRacing's going to have a career mode, like a single-player career mode. So how does that work if you have a subscription every month? Like, surely you can just like buy a game and play the career mode, like for a one-off fee. So that's quite an interesting thing that could arise in the future. Will iRacing change its kind of subscription model to suit that? I don't know, but for me, it does stick in my craw a little bit that I've bought all these cars over the years in iRacing, and to use them, I need to spend was it £13 a month or something like that, or is it £10 a month or whatever? I don't know, but yeah, it feels a bit wrong, doesn't it?
So, there's a couple of things there. First of all, what was that Scottish expression you just said there for those who aren't Scottish?
Sticks in my craw.
Sticks in my craw.
Sticks in my craw.
No idea what that means.
Really? You've never heard that before?
No.
Is it not be in the bonnet? Would be more.
Be in the bonnet, yeah.
More translatable.
I'll be in my bonnet.
Then there's also the other thing of, I understand why there is a subscription to iRacing, in that keeping those servers maintained, keeping that daily race ranking for the online multiplayer component of it, and the special events. I think that is worthy of a fee. That all costs a lot of money, a lot of development time. It's an amazing system. It's just there's no option to then, why do I need the sub if I've bought the car and I want to do a single player race? It's kind of a weird thing.
It's just the nature of a company trying to monetize its product in as good a way as possible. And one thing I would say is, and I have a similar feeling to Ross, I'm frustrated that I own so many cars and tracks from back in the day that I bought when I was younger. But then of course I lose it as soon as I lose my iRacing subscription. it was always a choice. We were never forced to play iRacing, to buy the content for iRacing.
No.
So it, at the end of the day, they're offering a service, and you choose whether you would like to pay for it. That doesn't change it from being frustrating when, of course, your subscription runs out. I don't believe they'll do that for single player. If I was to take a guess, they'll change anything for career. I think the career mode progress would be tied to your account, and to access that, you just need to pay. But this is total speculation and a guess. I just can't see them making that big a change. And yeah, just to come very quickly back to Corey's comment in the first place. Like Le Mans Ultimate has an option of a subscription if you want to, but there's nothing you can't really do in the game without buying something other than these odd championship events, like Tom says. So giving the customer a choice is obviously better for the customer or consumer, but it's not necessarily better for the money being made by the company that made the game. So it all comes down to that.
Yeah, and again, the iRacing payment model is for another time. I'm not actually opposed to it as most people are, because I see the value in it. But it's just they talk so much in the development diaries. I mean, that's an exaggeration, but they've mentioned it now more often than not in every one of those developer diaries they do every quarter on their website. The career mode. Oh, it's in progress. We're going to do this. Da, da, da. And right now, I cannot get excited for it, and I don't care for it unless I know the pricing model. I probably is going to be just part of the subscription, right? But then do I get to a blockade where I have to buy a certain car or track? Now, Le Mans Ultimate has a similar issue to that with its career mode that it's also working on, to an extent, not because of subscription, but because a lot of its content, it's 50-50, I think, for tracks, are actually paid DLC bundles. Now, they might be available in a pass at a discount, and maybe they're on sale at some point, but there's going to be a whole thing where you open that career mode, and we've already seen it in a work-in-progress graphic of a menu with the tracks that says at the bottom, if you don't own a DLC, you can just skip these events. Which does kind of take away from that experience, I think. But we'll have to see. It's not finished, so maybe that's unfair to say.
And a modern problem for racing game career modes is that games adding a career mode years after the game releases, but also after DLC releases. That's not an old problem. That is a modern day problem, and we're going to see many different solutions, I'm sure, to this problem, and it's going to become a lot more common. Yeah,
and it's also Automobiles 2 when it's working on its career as well. A lot of that is DLC. Is there going to be a specific career bundle? So effectively, you buy the career mode because you buy everything that you need to progress through it. It's a very strange thing, like I say, modern day only for the simulator market, really. But speaking of career modes, we have got a wonderful video that John Nosey made on the main Traxion GG YouTube channel about the best career modes that we think, 10 games that we think deliver the best single player experience from over time, and why that's interesting, and how these new games like iRacing, Le Mans Ultimate, Automobiles 2, or any others that are coming along and trying to revive or add in career modes for the first time. But we'll leave it there for this particular episode. Thanks again very much, everyone who watches, listens, comments on YouTube, comments on Spotify, subscribes. We see it. We love it. Thank you very much. Don't forget, traxion.gg/Discord. There's a little podcast area. You can ask us some questions. Just message in there at any point. And if it's a good question, we'll answer it on the podcast. And also, there is the traxion.gg website, updated every single day. And the last plug is, there is the Traxion newsletter sign up on the website as well. But that's it for now. See you next week.